So thank you very much for the explanation. It's a great honor to be a part of this conference, so we're really proud to be here and to see how is the community growing and as more application we see in the field. Today, I like to speak to you why you should think about the customer-specific design. My goal for today is to motivate you to think about that, and I will try to explain which steps are needed to go for a customer-specific design then. First, I like to do a short company introduction that you have an idea who is speaking in front of you and what our background is. So we are Switzerland-based, founded over 30 years ago. We have over 30 years experience in designing custom-specific electronics, basically. We do a lot of custom-specific design and even can do the production for our customers as well. 2016, we joined the LoRa Alliance because we see it's a very strong, powerful technology to give a good coverage for indoor and outdoor application. That's the reason why we started developing such product in that field. So why custom-specific design, you would ask? Because as you see outside, there are many, many devices there. It's growing. Every time it's coming new devices on that, standard devices. You can use out of the box, of course. But we see a lot in the applications. To bring out the maximum for your use case, it's very important to customize it for a certain application. Because with general firmware, you can't get out the maximum of your battery lifetime, for example. You don't have the right accuracy, or even you have trouble in rollout devices in the field. That's really a point you have to do into your mind. We think for OEM version, it could be interesting about if you have, let's say, more than at least 500 pieces, then it makes sense to think about customization of that. Let's give you a few things you have to take into mind if you're starting think about the custom-specific design. We see often, it sounds very simple, but exact device specification is very, very important at the beginning. You see hardware is static, you can change it if you have it, and then you have to do your thoughts before you start in building really custom-specific hardware. You have to think it's always a compromise, especially if you have battery-driven devices, between the size and the battery lifetime. And you always need a compromise, and you have to optimize for your use case. Another important thing is the norms. We have the regulatory, especially for worldwide applications. The LoRaWAN ISM-WAN is regulated differently depending on the region you are installing the device. And that's important if you start with the development phase. We have to take into account how we optimize the payload and everything like that. Very important too is the rollout process. Because device cost is one thing, but you also have to install it, maintain it over the full life cycle, maybe change batteries, make firmware updates. And that's important to think about that when you start with the design. Let's give you an example about that. So simply, there are many GPS trackers on the field. You can use it, of course, out of the box. You have no development cost, kind of no risk. They are certified and they work. And a lot of software companies, they started with that. That's perfect because you have a good starting point. But then if you have a certain application, you need custom-specific adaptation. Like we did for that customer, because he tracked construction machines. It must be reliable. It's in a harsh environment. And we need a good and long battery lifetime because it's hard to change the batteries on the devices itself. And then we added an extra function for him because he rent out construction machines, and for him it's very important that he can count machine hours. And so we count machine hours by detecting vibration. And in that application, the position is only important if the device stands still. So during movement, it doesn't interest really. But if you stop working, then you like to know where it is. And for that, we exactly tailored the device for him. The second one is, we see often, a lot of people, if you're thinking, or start to think about a custom-specific product, they like to insert as much interfaces, as much sensors they can think of, and think we are ready for all type of applications. That's true. A simple temperature sensor, it costs not that much, but you have to think, you need a payload size, you have extra battery, and you need a firmware that support that. And if you take all that things, you have a generic device which is not fit for an exact use case. And so we recommend, think about every sensor you like to use in your device and question it if it's really needed for that. Otherwise, it's better to have different devices. Because we also have kind of multi-sensor devices. They're very good for proof of concept. You can test a lot of that, but for a certain application, it's important as less needed sensors that are better. For example, like here, we have a detection for fire extinguishers. Sure, you can't buy a generic device because it's here the device really integrated into the handle, and we did integration for that customer to detect if the fire extinguisher is there and maybe if it's used. And because the device is very small, so we have to optimize the size of that. Because first was the idea, let's integrate temperature humidity sensor. We see, yeah, great, no problem. But the problem came because of the battery size. Here, the battery size is very, very small because it's only on action activated. And that gives us the ability to integrate it directly into the handle. If you add extra sensors, we can't realize that in that size. That comes to the point, battery life. As I mentioned, it's very important. It's always a compromise between size of the battery. We have conditions like temperature range, and for that, we have to optimize the whole design. And we even have to optimize the electronic itself, how we design the circuit, what for components we use it, and gives at the end the price of the device itself. That's another example we did. Here we do monitoring on rooftops if there is some leakage on it, because especially if you have wooden construction, it's very dangerous if the wood becomes wet, you lose the heaviness and you have problems with the stability of your house. And for that, sure, you can't buy that sensor principle out of the box, and we did an integration for that. And because the device is mounted on the rooftop itself, it's very hard to change the battery, for example, or if you have other problems with connectivity or stuff like that, it's very expensive. And we have to optimize everything and test very well that we got a really long battery lifetime for that application too. Another important fact, as I mentioned before, is the rollout process. You always have to think, who is installing my device? Do I by myself? Does an end customer do it without any schooling? Do I have service technician in my field? That depends already how I design my product, what for technical manuals do I need, and how to explain how it works. And that's really a big point we see. What many people struggle a little bit if you scale up. It's really hard and becomes difficult sometimes. That's another thing we did is for the infrared communication for electrical meters. And the idea of that device is we really send it by post to the end customer. They only plug onto the device, and the device itself look what for energy meter it is and take the right configuration for the end customer. So really plug and play. And we do also have completely integrated by our end customer that it really, really works good. And here it's also possible to change the batteries without any tools, so I can easily open the device and change the battery by myself. Because we have here approximately battery lifetime of up to 3 years if I use 15 minutes interval, and the day is coming when I have to change it. Another important fact is what we always see is the lead time of the components. We have, for example, batteries we used for example, the tracker, really high quality battery. We have lead times up to 50 weeks. And a lot of people say, oh, let's start. Now I like to have 5,000 or 10,000 pieces. And we have to say, yeah, it's cool, but you need 1 year and up to we have the components here and we can produce it. So think in an early stage about that we have to start for the sourcing. And in a lot of IoT projects, we start sourcing during the development process of the critical components. That's another very important fact, because if you think about scale up, it can go fast, but then you're not able to deliver any components, and that's bad for your business. Another thing is about the ownership of your device. If it's your device, it's in your hand. And it's up to you to make firmware updates, changes on the devices, and you are afraid of new firmware versions which doesn't work, or change in the mechanical status. And that's another important fact we see often in the field, that devices sometimes changing and they have an impact in my application, or the device doesn't work, and it's hard to find out why it should not work. Is it a problem by the stack? Do I have a problem? Is it no network coverage at their site? That's difficult to find out. That's another one, is for a fire hydrant, water hydrant. We did a detection about the cap, if somebody's removing it. It has to be rough, it's an auto application. We need here too a long battery lifetime. The electronic is not visible from outside. So we have the problems if somebody, especially the farmers, take out water and don't pay for it, we detect that somebody has opened it and we can react on that. What makes a difference at the end? It's a clever combination of existing sensors by firmware that we can always save battery lifetime if you have a battery-driven device. And that could be with very simple sensors, but you have to think about the exact use case, and you only can optimize if you really know exactly where the device is using and for what it's thought of to be used. That's a generic example. We see a lot in the GPS tracking if you combine inputs and sensor inputs for a certain application. We always started to use Wi-Fi sensors to get the position of the Wi-Fi hotspot, especially if you are in the cities. We have a lot of Wi-Fis in Switzerland. We don't need to add all the time the energy for the GPS calculation, or even if you are indoor, it's very easy to calculate the position afterwards if it's transmitted the MAC address over LoRaWAN. That makes the difference here and the cleverness. And even we have, for tracking applications, we became a feedback. If it's not possible to transmit the position to the LoRaWAN server, the device stores the position, and as soon as we have connectivity again, we will transmit all the positions we had in the meantime, that we have later on the full tracking of the device, even if it's out of network range. And that also could be very interesting for such different applications. Let's go again to the process. What is needed if we go for a custom design? Which steps do I have to go? First, of course, we have your idea. So you have an idea of a use case, what you like to do. Then, as you know, we are in the concept phase, so you have generic devices you're using, you're testing it, and you go to the end customer and see, does it work? Is it what it like to be? And when you have all that, we become to the definition, as I said at the beginning, that we can say, okay, it's exactly that what I need. I need that battery lifetime, I need that sensors, I need that size, I need that IP protection level and stuff like that. And then, sure, we go into the development process. And in our company, we do a lot of projects, and we always can learn about different applications, and we do not start from the beginning and have a good starting point for that. Important is to the industrialization, so I have to think of how do I produce my device, how do I test it, how do I provisioning the keys, how come the keys to the application, to the front and back end application. And that's at the moment a bit annoying. The colleagues are trying to have a good server where all the keys are stored, and that we think is a really good point they're working on. Because some manufacturers give you just a text file with the keys in it. Some you can read out by NFC, Bluetooth, USB, whatever. And it's for you a lot of work if you have a huge amount of device, you like to provision it and bring it into the field. And at the end, yeah, you have your product on stock and you can do your application. Which skills are needed? So to do a custom-specific design, we have many knowledge we need to know. It's clear you have all the norm factors, you have the certification factors, you need the skills about how does production work, how do I have to test it, how do I bring everything together, And to combine that, a lot of experience is needed. And you need the right partners that can give you everything at one side that brings you the best output we see at the point. And to do that, a good team is needed. So we need a good collaboration with the customer, because we are only the development house. We don't know what your end customer is needing. What is the application? How to use the devices? And all the inputs we need from you, and then we combine with our knowledge and bring it out in a good combination of everything. And like, I love this sentence here. Yeah, try not to do a bank robbery. You do the good team, and you do pragmatismus to have at the end the best output of it. We are a small team, we are flexible, but we have in the background a big company group that we also can do fast ramp up of the production and do a great design at the end. So thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a good show here for the end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. It was a very clear outline of how you develop those things. I was wondering, yesterday we heard a lot about certification as well, and the emphasis to start early with that. I saw in your schedule that was only step 5 out of 6. Is it not too late, or?
Yeah, it was not pointed out that clear, but for us, because we do a lot of designs, we exactly know what is needed. So we start in case earlier, but we always do the end certification kind of at the point we have the things on the table. So but you have it in mind, and we have to take care about that in the early stage too, yes.
Very clear, okay. Thank you so much, Stefan Zimmerman, once again. Yeah.